So my F1 2022 driver predictions, starting with the teams that I think will keep their drivers the same. There won't be any changes with, which is it's half and half. I think it's about half and half, because obviously new regulations. It's doubt that the teams will change their drivers that much. But yeah, starting off with the team who it's kind of obvious they're going to keep their drivers the same. There's no reason to change them. McLaren, I'm going with Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. For them, it's going to be a great pairing. Ricciardo is going to push Norris so much. I think there's not a lot of debate because I don't think there's many people who disagree. First of all, there's not many people who would be able to replace them in that seat, and also they're going to be great for them. There's not a reason to drop them. Then Ferrari, I've again keeping the same Carlos Sainz and their golden boy Charles Leclerc. There's just obviously Charles Leclerc is not going to go anywhere, but Sainz, maybe Schumacher could be brought in really early, or maybe even Giovinazzi if he was to have a great season. But I definitely don't think that's going to happen. Sainz is such a good driver that when they know that they have a race-winning car back, they're going to run a race-winning driver, and Sainz is exactly that. So yeah, Sainz, Leclerc staying for 2022. Then we got Red Bull. Obviously, Max Verstappen's going to stay, and I think Perez will too. Again, I think most people would agree with me here, but it's possible. We never know what Helmut Marko might do if Perez has a bad season. They love to just switch out their second driver. They might bring up Tsunoda or something. They shouldn't, because it's far too soon for a rookie to go to a team like that. We saw it with Albon on Gasly, so I think Perez will be good enough that they'll keep him for 2022. Then Haas, and I mean, maybe this was a bit of a painful one to make. I think Schumacher will stay. He won't go unless he was to do something crazy like go to Ferrari, but he'll stay. And then Mazepin, sadly, I think he will end up staying. Haas are in too much money trouble to not keep him. He brings in too much money to basically get rid of him. As much as Ilott maybe deserves that seat, or Schwartzman, I just can't see them dropping Mazepin. Maybe even Haas might be leaving the sport soon, come the new regulations. I don't think they'll leave 2022, maybe 2023 or 4. But yeah, Mazepin, Schumacher for 2022 again. Then the final team, who I think will keep the same drivers, Aston Martin. Vettel and Stroll. I think Vettel is far too valuable to them, especially considering they dropped Perez out for him, to lose him after one season, and he is a good enough driver to keep. And then Stroll, he's not going to be losing that seat while Lawrence Stroll is there. Pretty easy one in terms of Stroll. Maybe Vettel will retire. I don't think he will, considering he's now got this new team. But it'll be interesting to see how they do. So now on to the teams that I think will change their drivers, starting off with Mercedes. Surely George Russell gets that drive. Hamilton, I don't think will retire. I think it's going to be Hamilton, Russell. But even if Hamilton retires, it was Bottas, Russell. Surely it doesn't matter the scenario. Russell has to get that seat because he's been in Williams for 3 years. He's shown in Bahrain, obviously last year, even in a car that isn't made for him and that Bottas has been driving for years now, he still would have beaten Bottas if it wasn't for the disaster that obviously happened. He was this close to him qualifying. He's got to take over Bottas. Toto Wolff and the Mercedes people need to realise Bottas isn't the driver that's going to help them in the new regulations, especially beat Red Bull or any other team that comes to challenge them. So I am saying that Russell does get the drive and he sits alongside Lewis Hamilton for 2022. So with Russell leaving, that leaves a seat open at Williams, and I'm going with Jack Aitken to fill that space. He'll stay alongside Nicholas Latifi, Latifi will stay, and Jack Aitken will move up from F2. I think he will have a good campaign in F2 this year. He's been there for a while. He's got quite a lot of experience in that Formula 2. So I'm hoping, I do like Aitken. I'm hoping maybe get a top 5. In which case, I think that will kind of persuade Williams. Yeah, he is the right driver to come up and fill the big hole that Russell is going to create there. Especially with the new parts, they're going to need a strong driver. I think Aitken's good for that. Latifi's growing enough for me that he can not lead a team, because obviously, but he can be a number 1 driver in a team that's low. But they need to look for some young drivers who can lead them in the future. So then Alfa Romeo, I think Kimi Raikkonen will retire, and I think that will leave a hole for Schwartzman or Ilott. And this was a really tough one to choose. I think Giovinazzi will stay when Raikkonen retires, but whether it's going to be Schwartzman or Eilert, I think that entirely comes down to how Schwartzman does in F2. And I think it's in F2, it's going to be between Schwartzman or probably Daruvala or Daravala, or however you say his name. Maybe some other drivers, but I do think Schwartzman can win F2, and he'll then get the Alfa Romeo drive alongside Giovinazzi. Then Alpine, I've gone with Ocon and Pierre Gasly, this is probably the one I'm least confident with, because I wouldn't be surprised if Alonso just stays on another year because he's Alonso and he does what he wants. But I do think that Alpine might maybe just take a bit of, take the lead and just tell Alonso, listen, you weren't that good last season, because I don't think he's going to be that good this season. So we're bringing in Gasly, who is a much better driver, and we're keeping Ocon because he's starting to perform better. And I think that French pairing is going to be really good, and Alpine are going to love two French drivers in their French team. So to finish it off, AlphaTauri, I've kept Tsunoda, and then to fill the hole that Gasly will leave, I've gone with Jehan Daruvala, which I think I'm saying right. It might be Daravala. Daravala, maybe? Anyway. I think it's between three people. I think it's Liam Lawson. Is it Liam Lawson? Or Lawson, Yuri Vips, and Daruvala. Maybe Albon, but I think Albon's probably never going to come back to F1 in my opinion. I think he may maybe go to Formula E like he was meant to a couple years ago. I just don't think he will come back to F1. I think it's such a loss of confidence. And I think, I think Daruvala will do well in F2, and I think then he will be promoted to the AlphaTauri team. Maybe it could be Vips or Lawson, but I'm going with Daruvala. So there we go, the full 2022 F1 grid, according to me. I think it's a solid. There's a high possibility that some of these will go horribly wrong, like Gasly to Alpine. I think is unlikely. Well, it's not unlikely, but it's the most unlikely out of all of them. As I said, Daruvala could be replaced, or that seat could go to anyone. But let me know, and do all the stuff that they say to do, like the subscribing and all of that goodness.